Hello and welcome to today's podcast. My name is Carl Smith. I'm the business coach and owner at Concept Fitness Consultancy. Today's guest is Lewis Sinclair. Lewis, I have known for, I feel like it's around about 3 or 4 years in the capacity of an employed personal trainer through to self-employed personal trainer. Lewis helped me out with some of the virtual content that we were putting together in, I think what we call now Lockdown 1. And in between that, you keep going back to the army and doing bits and pieces. So what I do know about Lewis is that Lewis was certainly one of the busiest PTs that I knew. I want to say he was delivering something in the region of 120 sessions per month back when he was an employed PT. So I think Lewis has got loads to share in terms of advice to support. So I'll stop banging on. And Lewis, are you there, mate?
Yeah, how you doing? Yeah, I'm good, thanks.
Good. Lewis, I'm just going to pass over straight to you then, mate. Just do us a favour, just introduce yourself and then just tell us a little bit about, I suppose, if you take you all the way back to why you first started your PT career and potentially what course you did, if you can remember.
Yeah, so as Carl said, my name's Lewis Sinclair. I operate at Dundee up in Scotland. I've been a personal trainer now for, it feels like so much longer when you talk about it, but it's actually only been from the start and birth of my career about 4.5 years now. I started in 2016 and I actually first started out at DW, which was probably, according to other personal trainers in the area, the biggest growing gym in terms of business for PTs there. And they were the first ones to offer me the opportunity. So I was kind of very grateful in how they went about it, that I almost felt a sense of loyalty to start there. It was well before the birth of Exercise for Less and before I met Carl. When I started out there, they, like most gyms, they actually had an hours system where you work for the club or you can go straight in as self-employed. It's very strongly suggested that if you don't have a business or you don't have many clients willing to start up straight away, if you're starting from zero, then you do these hours. Effectively, it just keeps either the rent low or not paid for at all. You do a little bit for them and they do a little bit for you. So you're kind of scratching each other's back. And in my opinion, I would definitely say, regardless of how well you think you're going to start, it is a fantastic way to get the foundations laid. You know, you make all these contacts, you're working behind the scenes with the manager, you understand how the club operates. It just gives you that next layer and tier, so to speak, to understand how the gym works. And you can go that bit deeper when you're meeting people and speaking with people. You know, when you're self-employed, you are out there on your own and you're out in the big bad world. You're trying to get every piece of business you can, set up those contacts, you know, use that time at the start effectively. You take every piece of advice you can, whether it's good or bad advice, you know, listen to everyone. I always played the dumb card at the early stages. I'd let anybody speak to me. I'd let them go on and waffle. I would always be like, yeah, cool, tell me more. And at the end of the night, I would then absorb whether that was useful to me or not. And, you know, whether it's good or bad, there's something good to take from all of it. If it's not something that you want to do that another PT is doing, that's good, because you've then established that that's not going to work for your model. So that was kind of how the birth of my business started. I pinballed myself quite a lot because I was still kind of trying to find myself and what niche I wanted to enter to. I'm definitely being honest, and when I said I was easily influenced back then by, I'd call it a powerful PT, someone who's in what my position is now. They were experienced, they had lots of clients, they were earning lots of money, so they were doing all the wow things that you would want to do as a new PT, so you would instantly be attracted to that sort of model. It wasn't until I even left DW, which was 2 years I was there, before I started to Exercise for Less. Again, I was self-employed by the time, in full by the time I went to Exercise for Less. So I had a pretty good client follow. About 90% of my business followed me there because it was a simple plan at Exercise for Less. It was a nice, cheap gym. They were effectively gaining money back because DW is a higher end bought-in gym. So that they were more than happy to make the jump, and it was only around the corner. It was about half a mile from the gym, so it was very easy. Lots of perks for it. But again, I started off employed again because that was just the way it worked, and I saw that as a bit of job security. At that time, I was sort of thinking with my ex-partner that a mortgage might be coming up, so I had that sort of very much thinking in the back, and I think that really reflects on what you're wanting as a PT there and then. So whatever it is you're chasing, that needs to kind of reflect how your business works. At the time, I was thinking job security, bringing in money that would help aid that mortgage. So the employed role seemed very easy and straightforward. A couple of months to kind of find my feet. I'd probably be quite honest when I said that exercise for less model for me was quite relatively simple to grasp. It was effectively coming from the top. They wanted to see you bringing in a lot of sessions. So for me, it was very much how many sessions can I manage, what's pushing it too much, what's going to cover my bills at first. And once I'd got that all established, then I could really start steamrolling the business and building up my own thing. So within about 6 months, I was finishing pretty much top 5, top 10 in the company, and I wasn't finding it overly stressful to do. And I was like, you know what, if I give this a real hard shove 1 month, I think I could actually top this. And 1 month, I did manage to finish at the top, but again, I really shut down everything. As Carl mentioned at the start, I'm a part-time soldier as well, so I split up a lot of my time with that and being a personal trainer. And I had to shut down the army time, family time came down to almost a halt. And it was just 1 month of full send. And I did make it. And, it was good to see that, again, reflecting back on those goods and bads, that for me, that wasn't sustainable. If I wanted to maintain that, then every other part of my life would have slowly deteriorated. So if you've got that time to devote, then absolutely go full send. But as other things fall apart, you'll soon find that your business may be successful, but it's not worth it, in my opinion. You need all your pillars working alongside. So for me, it's, making sure that I've got a good bit of family time. Fast forward to right now, I don't work as much. I work a lot smarter, so I've got more time to enjoy my life, my social life, work on developing my business. When I was doing those 120 sessions, developing the business was just getting more sessions. That's literally all I could do because I had no other time. I promised myself I wouldn't work weekends when I first birthed my career. At that point, I chose to do it. So it just goes to show I was then knocking down barriers that I'd set in place. And that brings me kind of forward to being self-employed. So I started selecting my own hours after that. Bringing it all the way to now, I'm now in a very set position, minus lockdown, that I can choose my hours quite happily. I've got a lot of loyal clients. I had clients that have been with me from the day I started at DW. And for me as a business, I know a lot of PTs work on a big turnaround model where they get them on 12 to 16, 20 week, whatever programs, or 10 week flash sales and all this wonderful stuff. And if you want to do that, that's good. But for me, building a sustainable business is knowing that clients will return every month without even having to ask them. We hit a goal, we are already making the next one, and then we go and attack it. My longest serving client is now 4 years, and I've only been in the business 4.5 years. So it was pretty much from the day I walked in, he's still been with me. And he's even my eldest client as well. So it's, again, and that kind of knocks on the door of my next point, which is finding what niche works for you. I know a lot of personal trainers in my area, they're very much all about bodybuilding, and that's how they shape their business. So if you're at that level where you want to step into that advanced training category, you then go to them. If you're at that point where you're doing rehabilitation, you might want to see a PT who's more physio orientated. Very early on, I kind of made the decision that I wouldn't have a niche. And it was a bit of a risk at the start because there were a lot of people who, when I first started out, I was very skinny because I was a long distance runner. And I still remember this one client. It makes me laugh now. At the time, I took it very personally, but it was quite funny that they said that they really didn't feel comfortable training with me because I was so small, skinny. They felt like I really wouldn't be able to get them to where they wanted to be to gain weight. And as a young personal trainer, I was 21 at the time. I was trying to explain to them that just because I don't look that way doesn't mean they can't look that way, but it wasn't working. So I actually had to shape my shop window, my own body, a little bit differently and bulk up so I could actually navigate my way into that world. So all these personal trainers that are hitting different categories, yes, it's good because they have that constant niche, but they are avoiding every other niche out there. So I've got clients that my two eldest clients have one had a knee replacement, one had a hip replacement. That's our focus of training just now. My youngest client is under 16, so he requires very specific style training that's not going to hurt him. He's training to be a high-level footballer, so we can't infringe on his training in games, so that's completely different. And if I put myself in, I'll use bodybuilding because it's an easy example. If I put myself in that niche, those clients I would never see again. If I suddenly tomorrow said, right, guys, I'm going to step into bodybuilding, I'm not going to do this anymore. And to me, that's not good business. Business is making those smart decisions to promote yourself in any way possible.
I think just to cut in there, I think you've made a really good point there. I think the thing with niche, and it's a very hot topic at the minute, certainly when you talk about online PT, and I 100% get why you'd want to focus on a niche with regard to online PT, because it's about your marketing, it's about narrowing it down to a particular audience, and it's about honing in on the goals and of that particular audience so that they engage with you. When you're in a commercial gym facility, you kind of have to be all things to all men. So that you can cast a wide net, I suppose, and I guess that's what you've done, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So I've only worked I had a small period where I left exercise for less during lockdown, where I worked in a private gym only for a couple of months. So I've got very limited experience in private gyms, but I've got a lot of friends and personal trainers who have worked there. As you said, in a corporate gym, if you want to hit that large member base, because that's your pot, if you like, to choose from clients, is, in my opinion, definitely open your eyes to everyone, speak to everyone. And stepping a little bit to the side, it's the hardest way to gain clients, but it's the best way as well. Like, those are the clients that are with me years on end, are the ones that I stopped and spoke to and broke down those sort of employee, employer, or member personal trainer barriers. And most of them are friends now. We all help each other out. They've got businesses that I invest in, and they invest in my business. I'm at that point now where that's more how I operate. I see how I can help them with their business as they help me with mine. So, one of my clients is a barber, so that's where I get my hair cut. Something as simple as that.
Yeah.
That's how deep I go into kind of corporate gym value is, how can you make them stand out, especially in a gym of, I think we've got over 5,000 members now. How do you help them even more? And it's stepping outside the gym. That's how I kind of evolved my business even more. Instead of spending 15, 20 quid on a haircut to that barber, I just go to the guy who trains me. And it's as simple as that. It's the same with all their aspects of business.
Yeah, makes absolute sense. So okay, let's take it all the way back then. So do you remember who you did your course with?
So I did mine through university, which was a bit of a roundabout turn for probably 90% of PTs. A lot of people go on the 6 to 8 week course or the 6 month part-time or do online learning. And at the end of the day, that gets you qualified to get in the door, which is what you need to get in the door. I spent 4 years studying strength and conditioning because at the time when I was at university, working with athletes and high-level exercisers was what I thought I was going to do. And I do have a number of clients who are like that. But as I was getting close to graduating, I realized that, the world's bigger than that, and you can affect change in everyday people as much as you can in athletes. So that's what led me towards it. And I kind of already knew from day one, before I even started uni, that I wanted to be a PT. So that was a relatively easy decision for me. But after graduating, I had a real struggle getting into the industry because a lot of industries, corporate gyms, which was where I was trying to get into, wanted to see that lovely piece of paper that you get after 6 weeks, which at the time frustrated me. Again, it makes me giggle now that I can look back on it because I'm where I want to be, that they would happily see this 6 week certificate rather than a 4-year one. And it was that one guy called, I'll always remember him, his name was Jamie, who worked for Club Training, which was like an agency that helped bring PTs into clubs. So they worked with DW. They did a lot of work down in London with Box Gym and things like that. And I had to go down to London. He gave me this opportunity, but he was like, you need to basically go down to London and study our model of business and sales. And I was like, God, like I've not got a penny to my name. I've not even started. And you want me to fly down to London, pay for this course, do this, do that. And it was a real calculated risk, because if it didn't pay off, I would have been completely, in the twist. But I went down, done it. It was only one weekend, about 2.5 days worth of business and sales training. And it did have value. But again, the main thing was that I got that tick in the box and I could start working. So for me, it was a very different way to probably how a typical PT would enter the business. But when I see newer PTs walking in the door, they now really lack experience. They've probably got the knowledge, but applying that in to these everyday people who don't need to know the science terms of pivot joints, and they don't need to know the biology of their musculoskeletal system. And there are some people who love that, and that's fine. It's knowing your customer. I can speak to people who want to be spoken to like that, because it excites some people to know that background and that next level. But in a corporate gym, I can definitely say that 80% at least of my clients are spoken to in very simple terminology. So that experience is where I think the real gap is for new personal trainers, and they need to fill that gap as soon as possible in any way they can.
So that's a good point you come on to. So what do you think is if there was a particular skills gap within the PT qualification, are you saying that it's more sort of on the job experience, or are you saying it's more the business and the sales side of things?
I think to be successful within it, you need a real blend. You can choose to be dominant in one area. Again, I know a lot of PTs that push their luck in more directions than others. But for me, like, it's a blend of knowledge, which is the backbone, really. Without that, you can't be a PT. You need the knowledge. You need to know how to sell yourself effectively. You are your own shop window. So if you're overweight and it's quite easy to see that, then you really don't have a strong chance of building a strong business. If you mirror yourself to look like a bodybuilder, then you'll probably attract in that image. And it's an unfortunate way, because sometimes it really shouldn't be that way. But that is the way that industry works. It's a visual market. If someone likes the look of something, they'll go for it. If I post a progress photo of a client showing they've lost X amount of weight in X amount of weeks, that off the back of that will probably rein in more clients, because other people want that same target. So I think a big one, though, that where people are lacking is communication. Being able to know your customer and how to talk to them, not even how to sell to them, that's a separate thing, but how to speak to one person to another person. If you've got someone who comes in who's everyone's got the kind of the Bronx of their area. I've got a lot of clients who are very strong Dundonian people, and we have fantastic laughs in our sessions, just about what we've been doing in our work and things like that. We have a good giggle. And then there's other clients who are quite serious about what they're doing, or elderly clients who have had those injuries, like I'm training, or not even injuries, but that's not how they talk. Like my eldest client, I learned probably about as much out of him as he does from me. He goes on about all these historical places. He loves to travel and do all this, and he's 74 years old. He's been all over the world, and he shares all these journeys and travels, and I could listen to him all day. But that's how I communicate with him. I listen to what he has to say, and he listens to what I have to train him with. Whereas other clients, they like to have a giggle, they like to enjoy it. As long as the backbone is getting into their results, you need that understanding of how to communicate to them, though.
I think it's both, isn't it? It is communication. It's also genuinely caring about people, and if the reason you get into this industry is because you want to help people, then as a side effect of that, you'll be successful, and you'll make money. If you get into this industry to make money and you don't really care about people, it's never going to happen.
Yeah, I think there are spells where you can get away with it, where you think making money, because I've had my point where I was like, oh God, like I'm making this much, but I could make more. And there was a very small period, and it woke me up very quickly. And it was right around the time I finished that high top of the company. Because I've done so many sessions, I did receive revenue quite generously for it. But when I had that, because I was working so much, I couldn't spend it. And yeah, the goal is not to earn money and spend money, in my opinion. But if it's just sat there, where is the value in absolutely killing yourself day in, day out, starting work at 6, getting home for 10, getting up and doing it all over again? And the aftercare of my clients, I noticed, started to suffer. And luckily enough, the standard I told myself to would be a lot higher than what my clients expect of me. So I caught it very quickly and noticed that my aftercare and my check-ins out with seeing my clients was starting to slowly deteriorate. Not to the point where I lost any clients, thank God, but straight away I noticed that the value in money is not the value in clients. They're two totally different things, and you don't have to choose which one you're going to do. You can balance it, but one way or another, you'll probably hit a crossroads in your business, and you'll realize that you're going to slowly start heading in one direction, and it's up to you which one you want to take. Can't tell people how to run their business, but in my eyes, the money will always run out. The value in clients is something that you can hold on to forever.
Well, there's something I've not really asked anybody yet. Talk to me a little bit about the aftercare side of things, and how important you feel that is to growing a client base.
Yeah, absolutely. Again, I'm lucky because I've got such a long standing. Most of my clients are all a year plus now. The only ones are the brand new ones that are just getting started. I very rarely have a client come on board that leaves again very quickly. And it's just the relationship I build with them. I like to break down that barrier very quickly. Some people don't like to do that. Again, it's totally on you how you want to run your business. But because I help with them and invest in their business, and I meet some clients who are now friends for coffees. We just go for a hangout and a blab and things like that. That for me is aftercare. Having that relationship built in strength. And it could be something as simple as a check-in, but going that stage further and not saying, have you hit your macros this week? Okay, you're due for your next block. And hitting with them with those hit questions all the time. That does work, but it's adding meat to the bones and saying, how's your week going? How have you been stressed at work? Are you getting enough sleep? Those kind of aftercare questions shows that you're really wanting to invest in them. If you're not just thinking about the standard things of checking in with them, saying, have you hit your macros? Yes, that's absolutely important, that for whatever reason that you're working with a PT, that you stick to your diet or whatever like that. But those are the extra stages. Everybody should be thinking about their diet. Everybody should be thinking about how much they're training. But extra things like water, sleeping, stress, family, feuds, you start knocking on a line sometimes of maybe getting a bit too personal. But again, because I've been with my clients so long, I know a lot of problems that they have, so I'm able to enter that conversation with them quite easily.
And do you formalize that, or is it just like a WhatsApp message every now and again, or have you formalized it with a process?
I think in terms of speaking to the clients with it, the most formal it gets is making sure that I check in with them more than I see them physically. So if I see them once or twice a week, I'll make sure out with that I check in with them. Maybe at the weekend, because I choose not to work at the weekend. That's my army time. So on the Saturday, Sunday, I'll check in, kind of try and get them to summarize their week for me. And however they choose to lead that conversation, I'll just roll and steam with that. So if they start saying, yeah, I've really struggled with my food, or I'm really tired, or I've had a takeaway, then I'll just push that conversation. And it tends to blossom into a bigger conversation anyway. If you answer questions directly, then you tend to get less of an answer. If you open it up and act like you're speaking to them, as if me and you are now, then you get so much more for them. And it's more time invested, but you get more back from it, so much more.
Yeah, fair play. I mean, I suppose one of the reasons I was asking, because one of my next questions was, do you use any tech to support you? So when I was thinking about check-ins, I was thinking about sending maybe a Google form, or lots of different sort of ways you can do that. But effectively, a formalized weekly check-in where your client fills out a particular stream of answers, and that maybe either prompts you to give them a call if the answers aren't as positive as you want them to be, or whatever. So, but I suppose my question was, are there any bits of tech that you use for your business now?
Not overly specifically. So I'm actually very old school. So I could not live without my Bible diary. So my diary, and loads of personal trainers. I have a personal trainer for me as well, who's helping me with a very sport specific performance thing. And even he's like, you need to get online, like start doing your bookings on your phone. It's so simple. And I will never convert from a diary, because it's so, for me, it just keeps that kind of grounded effect and not getting too carried away with technology. Going back to the kind of formalized check-ins, I use Pages, because I'm on MacBook. I'll use Pages, PDF, and Excel, or Numbers spreadsheets. Numbers or Excel, that's for their actual training. So if I give them a program to follow out with what I'm doing with them. So if someone comes to see me twice a week and they've got a 5-session-a-week plan, 2 of those sessions will be conducted with me. And I'll take care of the more technical areas. And we may not get the whole thing done, but the idea is that they become confident in those areas that they're struggling with. It's not about completing the session plan when they're with me. When they're on their own, It's about completing the session plan. So I'm very kind of forward about that when I'm doing my programming. Pages. So I've got a nutritional booklet that I made up that I send out to most clients right at the very start if diet's really key for them. And it's just giving them an introduction. It's generalized, so it's not specific to anyone. It's got formulas on it on how to work out, your metabolism, how to work out your daily expenditure. So it gets them interacting as well. That's about as formal as it gets for me. But as I said before, check-ins with me, once past that early stage, is very open-minded, and it could go in any direction. If someone was starting out in a business, because I did do it when I first started out, as I had a formal set sheet. I even had weigh-in sheets. So every time that they weighed in, they would basically see this list of weigh-ins so they could visually see their progress over time.
Yeah.
And now I've drifted away from things like that because you learn by mistakes. And I wouldn't call this one specifically a mistake, but in the form of, my methodology is a healthy body, healthy mind. So I don't want people to get dragged in if they've gained 3 pounds. That's necessarily a bad thing. That could have been 3 pounds of muscle. So that's why I've opened things up to a lot more of an open conversation and not regimented set things, because every single client operates differently in their own mind.
Yeah, fair play. Interesting. Okay, another question from me was any particular equipment. I know that obviously throughout this last, these last few months, we've been in gyms, we've been out of gyms, we've had to train outside, okay to train inside. It's a whole bunch of change going on. Are there any bits of equipment that you'd recommend to a PT right now? And I guess I'm thinking, we're now in lockdown again, but it does appear that we can do one-to-one training outside. So are there any bits of kit that you think are more flexible than any other that you'd recommend?
So yes, but before I answer that, I think what this lockdown has really kind of helped teach me, especially right from the first one last year as well, is that it's clear that realistically you don't need any equipment if you want to be able to train. The biggest piece of equipment you need is just a strong mind. So that ability to, as a personal trainer, for me, it's to give them that piece of equipment, to turn that weak mind or broken mind or that disheartened mind into a strong will-powered mind and say, okay, regardless of what kind of day we're having, whether we're in lockdown or whether we're in the gyms, I can train. And if someone can get past that, then realistically, they don't need anything. However, obviously with weights and equipment, we can get very specific. I think a kettlebell is a really good multi-purpose tool, and a skipping rope, which is a really simple cardio tool. Unless you're into running, it's relatively difficult to get someone into running, especially people who are uncomfortable with running for so many different reasons. If they feel their fitness isn't good, or people are watching them, or they feel things move when they're running. It's an endless list and battle with running. So a skipping rope, it's a simple one, and you don't move. So you could be stationary, you could be in your house, you could be hidden, you could do whatever you want. So that and a kettlebell, because you can effectively hit I could probably think of an exercise for every muscle group with a kettlebell. One or two other things as well, but kettlebell top of the list. I'd follow that. If you couldn't get a kettlebell, a dumbbell, because you can almost achieve everything with that. But for me, a dumbbell and a skipping rope is job done. You could do everything.
So I was just going to say, if you were to create your ideal, let's call it a PT road pack, for example, that you could put into the boot of your car, know that it wouldn't. You might have to lug it, 500 meters somewhere before you got to your session spot, and you didn't want to spend more than, I don't know, £300. Would there be anything else that you'd add to that? So we've got a kettlebell, we've got a skipping rope. That's kind of it so far. Would you add anything to that, or do you think actually that's enough?
Yeah, realistically, it's I think a big thing to know up front is when people have money to spend, they try to invest in what we call better pieces of equipment because they see more maybe high-level athletes using that branded equipment. And I think the brand is the real thing that splits the price. Doing your homework and understanding that a cheaper piece of equipment doesn't necessarily mean it's worse. A more expensive doesn't necessarily mean it's better. Like Rogue, for example, you pay for that slap sticker on them that they charge quite high level because they're a high-end brand, and they have the ability to do that, and people will pay that. And it is good kit, but there is other kit out there that can achieve the same thing. So Yeah, if you had that money to spend, yeah, you could invest in more. But I think the key thing to not forget is that investing in more kit will not make you better. You still have to use that kit at the end of the day. So yeah, if you had a little bit more money, then maybe some kind of multi-purpose cable system or a rack where you could use a barbell fundamentally. I think the cables are good because if it's got that ability to mount it from top to bottom, then you can adjust it. There are different handles and attachments. So it becomes, a very varied workout you could have, and you could still be very specific with very different exercises. So yeah, if you had a bit of more money, I think, and you had the room for it, a cable system, a pulley machine as it's commonly called, then that would be a good piece of kit because it's got so many values in it and it's safe as well.
All right, cool. What about courses? Any particular course that you and obviously you've discussed your strength and conditioning course, but not everyone's got 4 years to invest.
Yeah.
So, is there any CPD that you might recommend to again add either so a new trainer coming into the industry now? They've got their level 3, so entry level qualification. What would be the next best qualification to get their hands on?
Yeah, again, niche dependent if they're entering that, but from an open market perspective, I definitely think you would want to review your dietary work a little bit more. So there's not a lot of CPDs in nutrition because it's actually a bit of a separate course. However, it's so small in your level 3, and anyone who's done that will know that learning nutrition in your level 3 is actually a very small percentage of it. I had to go and do extra things online to get my dietary knowledge up to scale, and I did a lot of dietary work even at uni, but it's sometimes it's something as simple as skill fade, which is what happened to me because there was a bit of a gap between finishing uni and getting into the industry. Working outdoors to make you flexible, because this is a prime example of what's going on now. And that's a really easy CPD to get, to be honest. It's not an overly complex one. And again, here's where it becomes that kind of turn in the road where your niche is. If you want to progress yourself overall, you've got that ability to become a level 4 master trainer. For me, I love working with the idea in obesity and diabetes management. It's so current, it's so front line as well. And it tends to be the people that are not even in the gyms. There's so many people that need that help that aren't there. So working between that and maybe getting yourself like a GP referral, that's definitely where I see myself heading towards once things clear up, is working with obesity and diabetes management, but not in the people who are in the gym, because they're already here. They already want to be helped. I think the main people that are adding to the statistics are the ones stuck in their house that they want to be helped, but they say they don't. They know they need that help, but they're too afraid to ask. So for me, that's definitely where I want to go. So current topics, I guess, is a good way to sum that up. Something that's in at the moment, especially if you're a new PT, take every advantage you can, and then you can take bigger risks as your business becomes more self-aware.
Cool. Okay. Look, I think this is probably quite the question I'm going to ask is how are you maintaining your client base now throughout? Well, we've got another lockdown, which neither you or I know when that's going to end. We don't really know what 2021 is going to hold for us. How have you managed that with your client base, and how have you managed to keep your business afloat?
So I'm definitely not disheartened to say that my business has taken a huge knock with this. A lot of clients have went quiet. I'll still text them, once a week, just saying hello. I won't get annoyed with them or anything like that, because as me and your conversation was, we all have our kind of like dummy out of the pram moments, and whether they're just having that, I'll allow them to have it. But I'll speak to them as often as I can, just in a casual conversation, and it just keeps them, if they're not training with me, at least in the loop of a conversation. So when the gyms do open, it's not such a big wall to break down and get them back in with me. I've got plenty of clients who are training with me at the moment in the back garden. In the first lockdown last year, me and my dad invested a lot of money in kind of remodeling my garden into a gym. So I've got that backup. And again, some of my clients who are friends have helped me out. One of them's given me like an overhead gazebo that's really good. So now I'm kind of weatherproofed. So that's one way of doing it. Clients who are a bit more niche, like injured ones or elderly ones, or ones that maybe have conditions that would not permit them to go to another household. So if they're in that category where they're more susceptible to COVID, it'll be online or on Zoom. I'll give them a program to go and do in the house, so something they can cover on their own, or we'll do what me and you're doing now. I'll be there with the video. I'll demo the exercises for them. We'll have a laugh and a giggle through it. They'll do the exercises so I can see them do it. And it's really, I've not got one set thing. For me, I'm doing literally anything I can to make sure my business gets through, because that's my priority. I've invested years in this business, and that I know other personal trainers who, and I take nothing from them, I have all the respect in the world for them, who are taking other jobs to keep their business afloat. And for me, that's the red line. I want to make sure that it doesn't come to that. I will put everything I can into my business to make sure it survives.
I think that'll be the reason you do, mate, is the that tenacity. And I fully believe you will, mate. So cool. Look, I'm going to ask you one final question, if that's okay. Because it's conscious of time again. 20 questions in 20 minutes. Crazy name for this podcast. What's the most positive thing that's come out of 2020 for you?
2021. Well,
2020. It's 2021 now.
Yeah, the positive is that I'm in 2021.
I see. My mistake.
No, I think it's been a real. If I had to be really honest, it's probably the most humbling thing to. I went through a phase very early on in my business back in 2016, early 17, where I was really struggling, and I was considering, is it really for me? And I remember when I went down to London back on that course, and they said that there was probably about 20 people in the room, and they're like, more than half of you are not going to be PTs in a year's time. Yeah. And it still sparks the mind now, knowing that people will just give up when it gets tough. So this has kind of brought me back to that level again, where my business has truly suffered, and it's been humbling. I've got a lot more vulgar words I could use for it, but humbling is definitely what it's been. I was at a point at the start of 2020 where my business was, I won't use perfect, but I could not have been happier where I was in the first 3 months. It was really in a good position. I had the hours right, so I had my social life back. I had enough money coming in that I was paying for bills, but I was okay. I was able to reinvest in my business. I was starting to look at potentially getting my own spot. Those things were slowly becoming a reality, and a lot of that has been washed away now. And as much as that has truly broken me at moments, it's been humbling, and it's made me realize that, as amazing as it is to have my own business and to have been that good at it, is that it could be taken away very quickly. Mm-hmm. So the best thing to come out of it is that you just don't give up.
I was going to ask you one final question, but it might well be the best bit of advice that you want to offer to PTs right now. Would that be it?
Yeah. If you're really planning on going serious with this, in my eyes, it's a career job. I know a lot of people that run this on a part-time service. That's a limitation. This job is limitless. You could go in any direction depending on what your niche or your skill set is. My biggest advice is just, through all those failures, learn from them and go again. And some of them will absolutely floor you. Like I just said, that past year, there was moments where I was really like groveling, and if it wasn't for the army backing things up for me, that keeps me afloat when things get a little bit more rough. But that's a bit of a niche for me, because I've got that kind of soldiering mentality where it's no matter how hard it gets, you just keep going and learn and grow and learn and grow. To sum it up though, for early PTs who'll probably take a greater interest in this, it's definitely that in the early stages is make contact, speak to everyone, accept everybody's knowledge and words and friendships and negativity. Take everything in at that early stage and let that form you. Don't knock off opportunities because you think you can make it yourself. I went through that phase of thinking I can do this on my own, and it is, if you can do it on your own, well done you. But why do it the hard way when you can do it the smart way? You know, make contacts, get those businesses going, and before you know it, things will become very self-sufficient. You know, there's a lot of things that I now don't have to do because my clients are in that job. It makes life so much easier for me. And the advice they've given on me, like one of my clients is a mortgage advisor, and he's been kind of like giving me advice on how this work, how COVID is going to help and dip and drive that sort of mortgage and things like that. And it's those kind of contacts wouldn't be made if you said, right, we're going to do a 12-week plan and then you're out the window.
Yeah.
So if you want to do that, crack on. But if you want to build a business, that's not the way to go, in my opinion.
Lewis, thank you very much, sir. Appreciate you.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks, mate.